Today's episode is sponsored by Dynasty Athletic Performance and NC Football Connections. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Offseason 365 podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on all platforms to stay updated with the latest episodes, coaching insights, and football conversations. Subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and X. Thank you for listening and being a part of the Offseason 365 community. Today, we have a special guest. We have Coach Justin Clark. Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. Doing well. How's everything going with you?
Oh, I'm making it, Coach. I appreciate you for making time on our dead period to hop on to talk a little bit of ball.
Absolutely.
So before we get to today's topic, we're going to be touching on a number of different things. We're going to be talking about culture and expectations in a football program. But before we get to that, give our listeners a quick snapshot of your career journey to this point.
Yeah. So I started coaching the year I graduated college, which was '07. My dad was a high school football coach, a baseball coach, and so trying to figure out do I stay on the college level, do I come back and do the high school thing? It was my brother's senior year in high school, and he traveled and he followed me playing college football. So I figured that I owed him at least a year with him. And so that year in '07, we actually played for the state championship. And I thought this coaching thing was easy. And, uh, you know, I'm young and dumb. And, I kind of got hooked on high school football for a little bit and just the purity of the game, and so my dad parlayed that run to a job in South Carolina. And so went into South Carolina from 2008, I think, to, oh man, 2013. We was at Bowling Springs. And he ended up retiring. And so I kind of went out on my own and bounced a few spots. Was a year in Georgia. Came back into South Carolina, was at Gaffney and Westwood and Ridgeview. And then my alma mater called me back home, and convinced me that I needed to come in and take a head job back home. And then took that head job at North Gaston, and kind of was laying some groundwork. That was a really tough job, but we
Yes.
did a lot of good things there. But then ended up parlaying that job at the North Carolina Wesleyan University, where I started out as just a position coach, and then got elevated to recruiting coordinator, then elevated to OC, and then elevated to associate head coach. And then just trying to figure out life. I got two little girls that's getting older. And do I want to chase the college dream, or do I want to come back? Got a little bit more security and things of that nature, and so I just felt like it was better for the family just to get back on a high school level. And then North Lenoir came, um, and we got into some conversations in the interview process. And they've done everything that I've asked about. Hey, this is how we're going to do a program. This is how we want things ran, and things of that nature. And so that's kind of a little bit about where I've been an offensive coordinator or head coach pretty much at every spot that I've been at. And so I was fortunate in that area.
On the nice story, Coach. And you and we crossed paths primarily on the recruiting trail. I mean, during my time at Green Level, Southeast, Raleigh, etc. That's when we crossed paths. And what I appreciate most about your story is that you've seen it all. You've seen the highs of the highs, the lows of the lows, and the fully resourced programs, the not so resourced programs. So you have a lot of wisdom and insight that you can share with our listeners today.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And so, and that's the thing. You're always a better coach when you got some Jimmys and Joes with you, brother. But
Absolutely.
at the same time, I think that one of the trademarks for good programs is just the administrative help with it. Are they
Oh
going
yeah.
to are they going to support you? Are they going to do the things? You may not have the best resources, but at least you have the administrative support.
Mm. Very, very good statement, Coach. So since we're talking about standards and expectations, what are the three non-negotiable standards every player in your program is expected to meet, regardless of talent level?
Oh shoot. I tell them all the time that this whole thing we're going to build champions for life.
There you go.
And we're going to win. We're going to win in the classroom. We're going to win in the community, and then we're going to win on the field. And I'm a firm believer that if you do the first two, sooner or later, the on field results will happen because now we're putting in the work. We know that we're learning to trust one another. I think that's really the biggest things. But as far as kind of non-negotiables is number one, we got to be able to trust you, and you got to be able to trust us, and that's building relationships.
Mm,
I can't build a relationship with you if you're not here. I can't build a relationship with you if you're not putting in the effort to build a relationship. And so I think that goes a long way is just getting to know the kid and be present. The second thing is we're student athletes. I can't help you, and I can't get you to play football if you're not eligible.
mm,
So grades are very important. And then lastly is just work. And we have to be able just to work and get these kids to understand. And I think kids want discipline. They still this era. Kids still wants discipline.
they
It's
do.
just what does it look like? And I think now is more the relational transformational and like the days of being a transactional coach. I think is few and far between. I
Yeah.
mean, these kids want to know the reason why we do some of the things that we do.
Mm.
And so just kind of being open and transparent with them is really big for us.
Mm, very, very true. Transformational. That's a buzzword that I see a lot on social media. But as of late, we've been seeing a lot more of the transactional, right? But building meaningful relationships. What I appreciate most about the nuggets that you just shared is it's very important to be intentional and all of that. If you're intentional with your approach, the relationship will be organic, and before you know it, the
Right.
kids will run through a brick wall for you. So since we are talking about culture right now, how do you build a championship culture that lasts beyond one successful season? Because like I said, you've been a part of successful seasons, not so successful seasons, but the intangibles, and you want your kids to take something that's beyond the wins and losses. So how do you build a championship culture that lasts beyond just one successful season?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the older that I get, my faith has been really strong, and we all go through seasons where we struggle with that at times. But I always tell our players and I tell our coaches, I want to be an Acts 242 program.
Mm,
And so what does that look like? How did the early church become what it was? And one that was taught with sound doctrine. And so what are we teaching our kids? Are we teaching fundamentally sound stuff? Are we teaching them how to do certain things and the way that we're going to do certain things? Are we breaking bread with one another? I think that's the biggest thing that we can do to build relationships is just go eat with them.
uh,
I'm not going to be able to get to know you just by you showing up. Like it doesn't take too much time just to go into the cafeteria of the school and sit down with one of your players and just go eat with them. It doesn't take a bunch of money. Say, I'm gonna go to Little Caesars and get some hot and ready's and bring them to the school and say, hey, we're gonna go do something. And so I think the intentionality of what we do sets the culture and sets the standard. Um,
mm,
you know, the biggest thing that we talk about with our brand is we talk about circle of wagons
mm,
and what that entails, and then we talk about our Hawk 12. And so what when we build the culture, what does circle of wagons truly mean? And that's just putting the blinders on our program, not worrying about anybody else. We don't worry about ourselves,
yeah.
and we're gonna build us. And if you see one, you see two. If you see two, you see four. If you see
Mm,
four, you go see eight.
mm,
And that's how we're gonna build this thing. Is we're just gonna build it together. If you want to in, then come on in. If you're not gonna be in, then you're not getting in. And
Mm,
so that's just kind of the whole thing with us is, we're just going to put the blinders on and focus on us and focus on what we can do to better our kids and better our program. And I believe that's what's going to set this culture for where however long we are.
mm, mm. And it all starts with the head, and you as a head football coach, clear expectations to your assistant coaches is very, very important. So when you're hiring assistant coaches, what qualities do you value more than football knowledge?
Um, are you a good teacher? You know, and do you know, you know, you may not know a lot of football, you may not know a lot of X's O's, but can you teach what you're presenting?
Mm,
And so that's what the biggest thing that I look at is can you teach it? And are you willing to learn? I think that's one of the things. The next thing is can I be able to trust you around the kids? How are you going to be around the kids? You know, are you going to be open with them? Are you going to be able to build the relationships? Are you going to put yourself out there? And I think those are the two biggest things is, are you a teacher and are you going to be able to build relationships?
mm,
Because I'm going to get you around anytime that I hire somebody. It's just not going to be you and I talking.
yeah.
I'm going to bring you in and I'm going to sit you in with our coaching staff.
Mm,
And, the coaching staff is going to have their say so in it. And they're going to sit here and say, Coach, I think he fits in with us, and they're going to give me feedback. And so, is this a guy that we want to bring in to the circle and circle the wagons and build the culture? And so, I think that's really kind of the two things that I look at, first and foremost, and then kind of, what's his story? Where's he been? How's he going to fit? That those are all kind of ancillary deals, but the two biggest things is just the relational piece, and then can you teach what you have?
yeah, yeah. So you brought us a few important parts. First you talked about the importance of being around the kids, and what people don't realize is, especially on the high school level, the college, that can be something completely different. But especially on the high school level, everybody has to be on the same page. I mean, you're literally fathers, and in some situations mothers, but you are literally fathers of kids that's not yours, right? And
Absolutely.
when parents drop them off, they expect you and your staff to take care of those kids and to hold them accountable and instill those values. So that's very, very important there. But you also touched on another important piece, having a growth mindset, right? And it's okay to come to the program knowing what you know, but you mentioned the importance of being willing to learn
Right.
something that you might not agree with, so growth mindset is very, very important, and just being a solid individual is very important. But we all know, accountability with high school kids is that's a
Right.
slippery slope sometimes. I mean, because the way it is now, if you as a coach say something that a player might not agree with, and you're in the right, the first thing that a lot of kids want to do is run around and run away to, in their eyes, a better situation. So how do you balance
Right.
holding players accountable while still building strong relationships with them?
I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking before we got on. Like kids nowadays want discipline. They just don't know what it looks like, and they're not used to getting it for in a lot of cases. And so at first it's kind of um, you ain't gonna tell me what to do. You ain't gonna hold me accountable. You ain't like, and so I think that number one, there's gonna be people are gonna push back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you don't hold firm to what you say that you're gonna do, then they know that it doesn't matter what they do,
Yeah.
you're gonna end up folding in some case.
Mm,
And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing for any coach, whether he's old or young or anything, is okay, if you say that this is the standard, then you better hold to that standard.
that's standard.
Eh, and so I think that's really what it is. And then once the kids start seeing that, then they're going to say, okay, like this dude, he says what he means and he means what he says, and we got to get on board. And then that's when you're going to start to get in. Um, I think that you always have those guys that's going to try you. Um, and that's everywhere that you go. But that's what it is. I always tell them like I'm not gonna MF you, I'm not gonna GD you. I'm gonna tell you that you better get your shit together. You
Right.
better get your ass moving. I'm gonna coach you hard, but we're gonna love you even harder. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's my job to pull out every ounce of athletic ability in you. And so I'll tell them all the time, like potential, like I cannot stand the word potential.
Yeah.
You might as well just punch me in my mouth when you say you got all the potential in the world. Just tell me I suck, right?
Yeah.
And so I think one, you got to be brutally honest with these kids these days. I think now the more honest that you are with the kids, the more that they see that it's not a front with you,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really kind of the biggest thing with them is just understand, hey, this is where we got to be, and you're not doing what we are asking you to do, and then this is the reason why we're asking you to do what we're doing. And I think that's really, kind of how we're doing it. We got an accountability program in the summer, and you got to hit certain marks and things of that nature. And so, I'm kind of excited to see with the buy-in of the kids.
Not nicely stated, coach. And before I let you go, because I know you got to hit the road. And for those who don't know, man, coach got a busy schedule. He's going to be at a gymnastics competition. He's going to be all over the up and down the East Coast. So, but before we let you go, coach, what advice would you give a young assistant coach who wants to become a head coach one day?
Do everything that requires you to be a head coach of your position. And if you see something that needs to be done, get it done. I think that's really where I think these young coaches, and to a degree, myself, when I started out, even in 2007, everybody wants a title. But titles come when the coach trusts you. And so, if you're in a place that you have to go cut grass, then hey, coach, can you give me the key? I think like the grass needs to be cut. Learn how to paint a line. Learn how to ODK and do some data stuff. And start learning how to inventory. Like be somebody that the coach looks at that now I can sit here and I go trust him. I think that's really the kind of the biggest thing is these young guys are hungry and they're good coaches. It's just trying to get them going in the right direction at times, and I think that's really kind of the biggest thing. I got two young guys that I coached at NC Wesleyan, right? And I love the kids to death. They've already took two kids to South Florida. They already took two kids to Carolina. Oh no, they took six of our kids to Carolina. They took two to East Carolina. Um, and that's not that like North Lenoir ain't paying that, you
No.
know, and so doing the things necessary that nobody wants to do. It's just the unseen work that nobody's ever going to know. Only you and that parent are going to know, and you're going to build those relationships as you go down. And I think that's kind of my advice for any young coach is just do the things necessary that if you want to be a head coach, then put yourself in position to be a head coach. You know,
Mm. Yeah, nicely stated, Coach. Well, thank you for listening to the Offseason 365 podcast. I'm Coach Simmons here with Coach Clark, and we signing off.
appreciate you.
Today's episode is sponsored by Dynasty Athletic Performance and NC Football Connections.